Hey, how's it going, everyone? Listen, I've always told myself that there are some stories that we need to keep to ourselves, and then there are other stories that we need to tell, that we need to talk about. And this is a story that I want to tell because I felt like I was being selfish with it. And honestly, I just wanted to take my time, enjoy these moments. And for those who have read the video clip, the title of this video, it's, this is a journey on how I found my father. What a true blessing it is. And yeah, man, I'm ready to share the story now. So you've also probably seen me wearing my all-in sweaters, my all-in hat, and probably trying to figure out, what is this all-in thing? What is he hashtagging this all-in, or, what is this sweater that he's wearing? And so I want to tell you, this is a design that my friends and I have come up with because it means something so big to me. And I just felt that I needed to wear this because this is what represents who I am. I'm all in. And I wasn't sure to if I should share it with anyone just yet because they may not have the same meaning or understanding on what it means to be all in. And so I want to share with you this journey of how I came up with all in, and because it plays a big role into how I found my father, and just the things that we've established and the things that we came up with. We actually came up with this, and it's huge. It's a big deal, y'all. The story is amazing, and so let's just get to it. And so I do also want to add in, I will finally be selling my all-in shirts. You can go to the website and you can purchase your all-in shirt. And I just pray that this all-in, you have your all-in moment, and that it's not just a brand because it's more than a brand. It's actually who you are. It represents you. You represent everything you're all in with everything that you do. And so I pray that when you purchase it, you mean it. Okay, so let's hop to this story. Listen, guys, it all started by me taking a shower and looking in the mirror, right? So I got out of the shower one day and I looked in the mirror and I truly looked at myself. I was really looking at myself. Like for the first time, I started to wonder who I look like. And so I'm looking in the mirror and I'm looking at every facial feature in my face, and I'm just every detail, every crevice. And I'm just starting to really wonder, like, who do I look like? Who do I look like? And for the first time, for the first time, I really wondered. And so that day, as I was, carrying on through, about my business, it just kept luring itself in my head. And I just kept thinking about it. I said, where is this coming from? And so for me, it's such a big deal because, I grew up without my father. I'm 30 years old, 31 now. I found it when I was 30. And, I've had this struggle with identity, like, who am I? It's hard to figure out who you really are when you don't know a whole part of your lineage. Where do you come from? What history do you have? So when you don't know things, about yourself, it'd be not saying that you can't overcome it. It just presents itself as a challenge to get over, you know? And so as I struggled with this for many years, guys, and when I came to the seminary, so I'm up here in Michigan, I'm in the seminary now, getting ready to finish up. I remember after I left out of that mirror and I, kept pondering on my mind, I went and I prayed, right? What else do you do? So I went and prayed. I got on my knees and I prayed a real intentional prayer. And I asked God for the first time, I said, Lord, well, this is what I said to him. I said, Lord, you know, I'm okay with never knowing who my father is. I'm okay with never knowing. But when I get to heaven, I want to be able to ask you, and I want you to show me everything. I need you to show me the book, of everything about myself, all, my entire family that I've never met before, Lord. And so this is how I imagine my conversation going with the Lord. And so this is my prayer. I'm praying this. And I had at that moment, at the end of that prayer, at that moment, I truly accepted, you know, never finding out who my father was. Like I come to the conclusion that it's never going to happen. And at that moment, I had sealed the stamp, and I was just ready to go on with the rest of my life. Okay with it. Like I was good. And so how does it happen, right? So how did it happen? And so I went from looking in the mirror, I went from, on my knees praying, and I went from accepting that I'll never find them. Well, something inside of me started to generate. Something inside me said, go on YouTube. And I started watching these YouTube videos of people who had found their parent that they've never met before, what websites they were using, what DNA kits did they use. And I'm just watching these people's stories, some good stories, some bad stories. And, some are encouraging, some are just, making me really scared and nervous, to take this task. And so as I was watching these videos, I would fly back to Florida. My wife and I, we fly often. And, we're flying back to Florida, and I get to Florida, I'm on my laptop. I remember specifically, going into my living room and I'm just, watching these videos on my laptop. But something inside me didn't want my wife to know. I didn't want my wife to know what I was doing. I don't know if it was some kind of like pride, if it was some kind of like embarrassment. Maybe it was embarrassment. Maybe I was like, I didn't want her to think that, I have this like missing part inside of me that even though I clearly am missing a part, right? And so I didn't want her to see that I'm vulnerable. It was like this vulnerability that I was afraid of just letting loose. And so I just hid it from her. So she would walk into the living room and I would just close my laptop real quick. And then I would, she would go away. I would go into the kitchen and I would, be watching other videos. And then she would walk into the kitchen. I'd close my laptop, and it kind of looked suspicious, but she never caught on to it. And so, I just went from this. And then, I was, watching going to different websites like ancestry.com and other websites out there. And I just started to get discouraged. I started to get discouraged, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to do it. It's impossible. After you figure out, the percentage rate of, the likelihood of these things happening, finding your loved ones for the first time, it's a pretty low percentage, guys. But so, anyways, I camped that. I throw everything away. I just bash the idea, throw it in the back of my mind because it's over. We fly back to Michigan and we go on about our business. Maybe a couple of weeks later, we get back on a plane. We fly back to Florida, and my wife asks me a question. One night, we're just in our room, and we had just put my daughter Janiyah to bed, and I'm in the bed, and I'm just on Instagram. Y'all, don't be going to bed with your phones, but bad example. I'm on the phone while I'm in bed, and I'm scrolling through Instagram. And Monique, she was doing something on her desk, and she hops in the bed, and I'm just scrolling, trying to look cool. I'm always trying to look cool in front of my wife. And so she hops in the bed, and she just leans her head over to me, or no, she leans her head over to me, and she says, do you want to find your dad? Listen, she said, do you want to find your dad? I have no idea where she got this from. I didn't who put her up to this? Does she have some like spy devices on my laptop? Do you have any spy devices on so I was wondering. I said, man, like, how does she know? Like, I was trying to look for this. It's probably maybe it's a couple weeks later. I'm like, how does she know that I'm curious about this? And so I just, on my phone, I look at her and I say, sure. I say, sure. And she said, okay. So she hopped out of the bed, grabbed her laptop, and just went to Dyson away. She was a really fast typer. And so she went on ancestry.com and she, we're looking at different packages, and she's talking to me about different things that, we can select from. And I say, okay. So she just finds one that have the best results, that give you the most information, I should say, which I think is the highest package. It was a special at the time, so I have no idea what the price is today. And so she purchased the kit. That same week, we fly back to Michigan, and the kit takes about 4 to 6 weeks to come back. And so it comes back in actually 3 weeks. And so by the time we get to Michigan, the package was there. So we grabbed the package, and it was a saliva test. So we did the saliva, boom, 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 shipped it off. And then it came back. I forget what time period it came back, maybe a couple of weeks later. And, at this time I had flown to Michigan. My wife was still in Florida. And so now it's just, I'm in class And Monique is just nervous. She's excited now because because it sends you this process like, okay, it's in the process. We're doing the DNA now, and boom, the results are in. And so boom, the results are in. I'm in class, and Monique is texting me saying the results are in. And I'm just trying to keep it cool. Have everything really calm and relaxed. I get back to the crib, and we call each other on FaceTime, and so we start diving in. So we go right into all the information that it provides us. My ancestry. What part of Africa I am black, y'all, and so what part of of Africa, the regions you're from. What's your blood. Yeah, it's all this information, right? And so it's amazing. And so another part of that, what they provide they provide your cousins, your aunts and uncles, and third and second and first cousins. That's a lot of people. And so to be specific, it was 12,750 people that I was linked with, going from first cousin to second cousin, third cousin, and the lineage continued after that. And so automatically, I'm thinking to myself, there's no way we're gonna go through all these people. And a back end story, guys, is that I don't even know my father's first name. My mom had a last name. And so Monique made it her mission. Let's call it her mission to get the back end story from my mom. Now, what I need to tell you is that me and my mother have never had a straight dialogue on how she met my father. I had never asked her about it. She has never willingly spoken about it. And it's an awkward conversation to have. I'm the only one out of all of my mother's children who does not know their father. And so I remember there was a period in my life where, my mom took us to a gas station or to like a little corner store in Greenwood apartment when we were living in Greenwood in Clearwater, Florida. And I can never forget, I would think I was maybe about 6, right? And so we got into the car, and my youngest brother went with his dad, my brother and sister, my other siblings went with their father. And me, here I am, I don't know who my father is. And I remember asking my mom, I said, where's my dad? Where's my mom? Where's my dad? And my mom told me later on that broke her heart, because I'm like the only one who did not know who their father was, had no relationship, had never met him, seen any pictures. I've never seen a picture, never knew his name my entire life. Until I was 30, right? And so my mom, so that's a little back end story. So Monique goes and we have a conversation with my wife, and my mom starts to, so we have a 3-way call with my mom and my aunt and my wife and I, and we're on the phone and we're just having these conversations about, everything she can remember about my father. And here's another back end story. I remember so I guess there's a lot of information here, and I don't want to share absolutely everything because this video would never end. But my last name is Powell, right? And so I have a last name of a guy who used to beat, and was very abusive to my mom. And this is a gentleman who she wanted to be my father, because she was doing her little play thing. And the guy who she loved the most, which is another gentleman with the last name Powell, that's who she wanted me to be. She thought, since they were in a relationship, that I was his child. Then they came back, I was never his child, and never met him, never seen a picture of him either. Don't know anything about the guy, but I have his last name. So that's where the last name Powell comes from. And it has no, I had to make it what I had to make it my own, really, because I'm the only Powell in my entire family on my mother's side. So I just had to make it my own. And I think I did a pretty good job. And so here I am, repping this name of a guy who used to beat my mom, right? So what kind of memories does she have about this last name, right? And so we're going back to my mom telling us the story about everything she can remember about my father. He was in the Navy. First it started, he was in the military. And okay, then he was in the Navy. He's from Jacksonville. I was born in Jacksonville. And he went by a different name. His last name was Cisco, Stefan Cisco, she remembered that name. But, my mom throughout the years tried to find or, do child support and stuff like that. That name never came back. And so that was nothing. I remember my mom took me to a pool one day. She said, Jeremy, I don't want you to. I was 12 years old. She took me to a pool and she said, Jeremy, I never want you to. I don't want you to grow up thinking that Sean Powell is the gentleman's name, is your father. And she said she gave some other name, and I'm assuming it was Stefan. She said, Sean, this guy Powell is not your father, but this guy is. And so I really didn't know what to think about it. I was 12 years old. Who? What am I supposed to do with that? And so my mom, so this continues to go on. My wife is getting all this information from my mother. And so this helps us a little bit on ancestry.com. And out of 12,750 people, there was one gentleman with the last name Cisco, right? One guy. He was like a cousin or something. And yeah, he was a cousin. And, what are we going to, so now, because it kind of like brought some hope, right? So now we're kind of excited. We get some information. Like, oh, now we have he had a picture on there. And, my wife is trying to like put two and two together, but how resembling, how can you get resemblance from like a third cousin, And so my wife, listen, guys, I have to be honest. I told my wife she has to do absolutely everything because I had already accepted the fact that I'm never going to know who he is. And so and also I didn't want to set myself up with all this hope just to be disappointed. And so I've done that to myself for a very, very long time. I know we all don't like being disappointed, right? And so that I was just trying to protect myself and my feelings, the last little bit that I had left on this situation. Didn't want to set myself up for failure, so I was kind of nervous and scared. But I thank God for my wife because she has given her just such a drive to complete something, and just this passion for me. Of course, my wife loves me, but it's just different when you're willing to do something, do so much for someone. And so not many people have what I have in my relationship. So shout out to my wife, Monique, man. You are the bomb. And none of this would have happened without you. All right, there go my little shout out, all right, for my wife. And so you get back to the story. My wife is going all in. And she, we're on the laptop. She's scrolling. She's doing things. And for me, I tapped out. I go to bed. She's up. I wake up at like 3 a.m. She's still up, clocked in, eyes bloodshot red, just going through as much information as she can. And she goes to bed. She got as far as she could. And let me tell y'all, the information that she found was crazy in just one day, right? And so day 2 comes along. I'm, again, going to class, and my wife starts day 2 of the process, and she's sending me all kinds of pictures and images and all this information. Send me a picture of this guy and then this guy, and sending my mom a picture. Does this guy look familiar? Does this guy look familiar? And she was sending like some older gentleman. So, because the guy was a little older, my father was a little older than my mom, and so we're getting like this guy could be my grandpa, and this, all these different kind of pictures. And I'm thinking like, man, I have no idea who these pictures are. You sending me all these pictures, Mo? And and so it was kind of excited but nerve-wracking at the same time, because I'm thinking like, dang, is she kind of close, and my mom said he was from Philly, and so we have these Philly pictures and stuff. And yeah, man, it was a process. And so while all this is happening, my wife so my wife, at the end of day 2, right, she stayed up. We had another long consistent night of like maybe staying up to like 4 a.m. trying to dive through all of these names. And my wife is going on Facebook and Google and all, LinkedIn and all kinds of things. My wife ends up finding a phone number, an address, a company business, company phone numbers, personal sales, all this information. And we go to bed that night because it was late. And we wake up the next morning by God's grace, amen. And she calls me and she says, I'm gonna call. And I said, what, you gonna call? And I'm freaking out. Like, yo, you have this phone number? Yes. She's like, yes, I have the phone number. I have this business. I have the, the work phone, and I really want to call. And, the last guy, the name, and so this is the guy who she believes is my father. And so here I am. I'm nervous as heck. She said, should I call? I said, no, don't call. And I said, no, don't call because we're going to ruin his life. And that's one thing I didn't want to happen. I didn't want to, you know, ruin his life. And so I was okay with being a kept secret. At that point, I was like, okay with it. And of course, that didn't deter my wife. So she was she had come so far. She had gathered so much information and she was motivated and she was ready to dive in. And so I said, all right, if you're going to call, we need to prep. So we had a little preparation, what you're going to say, to this gentleman and, just not to scare him off, or do certain things, that might sound crazy because this is about to be a crazy phone call. And so I said, just talk to him, tell him the story, tell him your husband who's, is on a journey of trying to find his father and, and so forth. And so I'm not going to give you the whole spiel on what we said, but I gave her a good prep talk and she went in. She said, do you want to be on the phone with me? I said, absolutely not. So I left. I said, I left it up to her and I went on with my day. I'm in the class and Monique is handling her business. Now, I did speak with my wife, and so I'm going to play out what it was like for her, right? So I'm in class, I'm gone. She's on the phone calling by herself. So she builds up the courage, right? She calls. She calls the guy. He answers the phone. Monique answered. Well, Monique is on the other end. And she said, hello, is this such and such Henry? And the gentleman says, no, this isn't him. Sorry, you have the wrong number. And he hangs up. Now, Monique had the wrong last name. She had the right first name, which I'm going to keep out for the purpose of this video. She had the right first name, but the wrong last name because she was pressured. She felt under pressure. She it was too much. So she called him by the wrong last name. She was supposed to call him Cisco. And so what does she do? She's a boss, man. For me, I would have been like, oh, no, I ain't calling back. But my wife, that's why my wife is in charge. She picks up the phone and she calls him back. And she says, hi, is this such and such Cisco? And he says, yes, this is he. And so Monique says, well, we're on a journey. We're trying to find, so me and my husband were taking this journey. We're trying to find, his father. And she gives him all the information that my mother gave us. He's in the military. He lived in Florida. He's, from lives in Jacksonville. He was in the Navy. He's from Philly. He went by the name of Stefan Cisco. And, sharing all this information with him, right? And so this is what he does. He says, this is crazy. And he hangs up. That's what he said. He said, this is crazy. And he hangs up the phone. Now, my wife was so crushed. She was so crushed. Maybe I need to have her parts in this video. So she was crushed, man. And she didn't know what to do. And so what happens is, so check this out. Y'all listen to the story. A few minutes later, like 5 minutes, I almost gave a full name. Such and such Cisco, his wife calls back. And she calls my wife. And again, when I spoke with them, this is what they're sharing with us, does he have any other kids that's going on out there? So she was probably listening. She was listening on the conversation. And, now she's curious, of course, what wife wouldn't be attentive or alert, some antennas going up, like, who is this, talking about such and such has a child. My husband has a child out there. Let me call this woman back. She picks up the phone, calls my wife back and says, can you explain the story? So my wife explains the story to her. And she says, well, I need you to send a photo because, all the Ciscos have a distinct look. And so my wife, of course, goes in her phone, finds the best picture of your boy, me, her husband, Jeremy Cisco, or, at the time, Jeremy Powell. And she sends it over. And so maybe there's a few minutes of silence on the phone when they get the picture. And she says, "Oh my gosh, he looks just like them." That's what she said. And so this is exciting news. And so my wife is just jumping for joy. She's excited. She's happy. Now they're going back and forth and just talking. And so my cousin gets the phone back and he says, "Oh man, he looks just like, either, Horace, or he looks just like Floyd. I need to talk to the both of them." And the amazing thing is that he hadn't spoken to this side of his family in over 12 years. The amazing part is that he still had their phone numbers after all that period of time. And so he goes back, and by the way, all this is happening while I'm still inside the classroom. And, he calls my wife back and he says, "Floyd, he's gonna give you a call back, and just be waiting for his phone call." And so my wife and my father, he calls my wife. My wife gets on the phone, she has a conversation with him, and they're talking. So my wife goes into telling him the story. She goes into saying, he's from Jacksonville, and he was in the Navy, he was from Philly, he went by the name of Stefan Cisco, and shares all this information that my mother shared. And the crazy thing is that, as my wife is sharing this information with him, he goes, "Well, that's me." That's what he said. He says, "Well, that's me." And so, my wife says, "Happy to meet you," and so forth. And they have their dialogue. And so they having their conversation, and then they end. My wife texts me. I'm in class still, so I get out of class and I call her, and she goes, I found him." And so I just think that was amazing. So I didn't really know how to feel at the time. I was like, "Dang you!" So we actually found him. All this time, it only took her 2 days to do all of this, and I'm like, "All right." I didn't really know what to do. How do I act? How do you act? I'm nervous, and she's telling me, he's waiting for your phone call. Telling me he's gonna call you, and she's like, "Are you gonna call him? Are you gonna call him?" I was like, "What?" I said, "Well, I mean, yeah, I'll call him. Just give me a few minutes. Actually, it took a couple of hours, so I actually went into my truck, stayed in my truck for like 4 hours. I was on the phone with my mom, my wife, my mom, my aunt, my wife. We're all on throughway, and we're having this dialogue. And my main concern for me was that I just wanted to make sure that he liked me. And I don't know why that it was bugging me, because I didn't want to have to pretend to be anybody that I wasn't. I want to be the same person that I am right now. Like I want to be Jeremy, and I just hope that he likes Jeremy and that he appreciates Jeremy. And, because, God's been working on me. My journey has been quite an interesting one and just a true blessing to my life. And I'm just thinking to myself, "Man, I hope he likes me." And so I get off the phone with the ladies. I think we end off with a prayer. They say, "Jeremy, you call him. Don't be nervous, yada, yada, yada." Give me this little prep talk. And, I call him. And we get on the phone and we're having this dialogue with each other. Nice guy, smooth gentleman. And, one thing that we wanted to do as we were establishing this relationship was that we wanted to verify it. So we wanted to get another DNA test done, just to admit, because we all about the facts, y'all. We want the facts. Why entertain something? It could be a waste of time. And so we do that. Of course, my wife, again, comes out of the woodwork. She finds a location close to him. She finds a location close to me. We go to our locations. We do the test. It takes 3 days. And so I'm in class. I'm nervous because I know the test is getting ready to come in. And I check my email. Boom, it's right there. And I'm nervous to click on. I'm in class like hyperventilating. Like, okay, all right, here we go, man. You know what I'm saying? It ain't nothing but a thing. You know what I'm saying? If it's not, it's okay, Jeremy. It's okay. If it's not, you good. Well, then now you know. And so I click on the email. Boom, it pops up. Have to do a couple other things. Click the button, and then boom, here's this thing. It says nothing but numbers popped in front of my face. It said 99. It said 99.9999998. And I'm like, well, dang, okay, well, it's official. It's official. Like, we found him. And so what I did, because he wouldn't be able to see the results until I sent them to him, and so I sent the message to him. And he said he was walking out the store at the time, and so he was looking at his phone. He was looking at the numbers, and so he had to go get in his truck. He would have got in his truck, And just how he described those, that feeling when, he was just, anxious and excited at the same time. And, he looked at those numbers and he was like, all right, we in there, we are in there. And so from there, we got on the phone with each other, and the dialogue started, right? And it's been amazing from that journey. And so eventually we would plan a trip to go see him. So I flew. It was like a couple of weeks before Christmas. We flew back to Florida. Well, I flew back to Florida, and my wife and I, we got into her car and we drove up to Jacksonville. We took the 3 hour drive. And the crazy thing about it is, me and my wife were talking about it, and we get to his house, and something inside of me is like, beat him to the door. Like, I want to beat him to the door. Like, I want to go knock on the door, ring the doorbell, because there's something about, I just hope he doesn't. I'm like, I hope he doesn't come outside to greet me. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what about it, made me so nervous. But of course, the opposite happens. We get into the driveway, and he comes walking out of his house to greet me, right? And he's waiting for me literally in his driveway as I'm getting out of the car, and I'm looking at him, right? So it's like a slow motion movie, and I'm walking up to him, and I'm looking at him, and the first words out of my mouth were, "You a good looking fella." And so right from there, we dap up, give each other a hug, and it was just an amazing day. It was an amazing day. Yeah, man. Thinking about it now, I don't know what I was nervous about. Now that we have this chemistry, but it's he was such a great guy. I had the opportunity to meet my sisters. I have three other sisters. And we sat around the round table, and we just had dialogue and asked each other questions to get to know each other. And my dad took us to a hotel because he got us a room that night. He didn't want us to drive back. He got us a suite. Shout out to my father. And you know, we come back to the house. He cooks us food, and we just have a good conversation. By the time that I leave his house, he gives me a key. He gives me a key to his house, and I just thought, I was like, wow, like, he gave me a key to his house. He told me my house is your house. You come anytime, man. And he gave me the alarm to his house. And I'm just like, man, you know, like, I can't make this stuff up, y'all. I literally can't make it up. And so what I didn't tell y'all is that on the drive up there, I'm so anxious, and I'm, have this, I'm so nervous. And so when we get into his house, I'm also like this feeling like, although I'm having this conversation, we're talking, I have like this pressure in my chest, and I'm nervous, and I don't know what's happening. And I just, I'm just, just all in the moment. So when we finally go to the hotel, when we leave from his house, he gives me the key. He gives me the code to his house. He, shares these things with me. I go home. We go to the apartment, well, to the hotel, and I'm like, I have this pressure in my chest, and I call my aunt, my uncle, because they're in the medical field, and you know, I'm just describing how I'm feeling, and there's an emergency room right next to our hotel, and so I can go to the emergency room. I'm talking to Mo, and Mo was like, I didn't want to scare her on how I was feeling, and so I explained to her what I was feeling in my chest, and we're on the phone with her mother, because she's also in the medical field, and so we just thought I needed to go to the emergency room, and so here I am in the emergency room with these EKG on my chest, checking my blood pressure, all these things, because I'm extremely overwhelmed. I'm extremely excited. My heart is beating out of its mind. Because I don't really know how to handle these things. I felt like I was about to explode, and I just had this pressure, man, and I was nervous. I was scared, and so here I am. Just met my father. Just met my father. I'm in the emergency room, and they clear me. Everything is okay with me, and I go back to the hotel, and we leave in the morning. We drive, and it was just an amazing night. And call my father before we leave, and we head back home. And maybe a couple of days after Christmas, he comes to my home. We invite him to my home. He had an event in Orlando, and so we invite him to my home, and then he comes to my house, and we have dinner. We have good dialogue, and he stays the night at my house. And before they leave, him and his wife, you know, I give him a key to my house. So I give him a key to my house. And I just thought that was, you know, because you know, what's mine is his too. It's a big deal. It's my father, man. I'm blessed to meet him, blessed to know him. Have that conversation with him, guys. I can't even describe the kind of relationship that we have. Only once, one, because I'm selfish on how I'm about to describe it, and another is just, this is me. It's my father. Me and him, and I feel like we just have this understanding that we are here with each other. And as we continue to have our dialogue and continue to have our conversations as we're on the phone, just the main thing that we were saying to each other was, I'm all in. We just, he wanted to make it, like he wanted to lock my mind into saying, to thinking, to knowing that he's all in and willing to continue this relationship, to like dial in whatever it takes. You're like, listen, I'm all in. And I'm telling him, I'm all in too. And like we're both saying this thing to each other back and forth. It's just every time we get on the phone, we're like, just saying like, listen, I'm all in. I'm willing. I'm putting my best foot forward to get to know you. And guys, it didn't take long. It didn't take long. Yeah, granted, we have a lot more time to go. It didn't take long, man. What a guy! What a guy, man. My father is a gentleman. He is a alpha. He is a, y'all listen, man. The guy's cool, and and there's something about knowing that just validates everything about me. My aggression, how I feel about myself, how I step my chest out, you know what I'm saying? Like this boldness that I have on my shoulder, and so it feels so good, right? And so I can only thank God for allowing me to have this opportunity to meet my father, and he's alive, right? And to be able to see his character, and to be able to talk with him and dialogue with him, and learn from him and him from me. And it's just been an absolute blessing, absolutely amazing. And so that's why we have this all in right here, because my father and I, we came up with all in. My father and I put this key. He gave me a key. I have a key. And so I was selfish with this brand because it meant so much to me, but it could also mean so much to you. What are you all in about? And so that's why I want to share this with you. Y'all can go to the website and purchase your shirt and wear it, because wear it with a meaning. You know what I'm saying? Like it's more than just a brand. It's big time. It's big time. You're saying that I'm all in what I'm doing. I'm all in. I'm all in it. This is what I represent, and I pray that when you wear it, it's what you represent. You're all in purpose. Your purpose. And so, y'all, listen. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been a true blessing sharing it. And man, I purchased your shirt. Purchase your shirt, man. It'd be a big time. It'd be a big blessing to just let the brand out there and just know that it's representing. Peace out, y'all.